because all guests are coming to you via the Fire Wings hotline. Try one of their delicious flavors of wings today. Fire Wings, just wing it. Let's bring him in. Scott Bair joining us as he does each and every week. Scott, how are you?
At first, I thought I was getting introed by the Swedish chef.
That would be kind of cool.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm down with that.
So,
how's it going, guys?
We're doing great. And last Thursday, I know it's hard to capture the emotion and the environment, but on television, it seemed fantastic. You were there. How would you describe what you saw from just the energy, the vibe of everything that went on with that Thursday night game?
I call it vintage black hole, but I think it's something more than that, right? Because I keep waiting for the apathy to kick in, and it's not. In fact, I think that Raiders fans are determined to keep partying until the last beer is gone, right? That's sort of their mindset on this season. And we could say probably the last primetime home game where they can, bring the cooler that you put ocean fish in, right? You can really stack it deep, and it needs 3 guys to carry. And ultimately, I think that's what they did. They really enjoyed the process, and I think it's a healthy way to go about this relocation thing, right? Mm-hmm. You can sit around and be bitter and pissed off, or you can get through the breakup, smile, enjoy the last couple nights, and then give the old farewell salute. And that's how they're taking it. And they enjoyed it because they hate Phillip Rivers. Because here's a wacky stat. Since Phillip Rivers came into the league in 2004, and since he was a starter in 2006, he has more wins than every quarterback to play in the Oakland Coliseum except Derek Carr. That includes all the Raiders starting quarterbacks, okay? So he has tormented them at Oakland Coliseum. They enjoyed watching him twist in the wind a little bit, I think.
Scott Bair with us. Scott, they're 5-4, and by my count, and things can, of course, change, but I think if Vegas was laying out odds for the rest of the season, I count 2, maybe 3, but most likely 2 at the Chiefs and at the Chargers, and that could change, games that the Raiders will not be favored in the rest of the year. They, barring some craziness, they should be 7-4 on the 1st of December going into Arrowhead with the Bengals and Jets coming up. Is the locker room, I know they're aware of this, but I'm talking about the philosophy. Are they in that mindset of, guys, we're literally in the driver's seat for the AFC West. We control our own destiny. We are a playoff team. Or are they more like one game at a time and, good Lord willing, hope the ball club? Where are they at mentally?
I think that everybody understands it, but John Gruden's mindset is correct. They're walking a very thin line right now, right? It's like they've played 5 games decided by 1 score. They're 4-1 in those games. That's what playoff teams do. That's what the 2016 Raiders did. I think they also understand, and partially I can understand it, that every time that they have one of these season-ending defensive injuries, you kind of look at it and you're like, is that the one where the whole sandcastle crumbles? Is that the one where they can't be opportunistic anymore? So I think that's why there's a fair level of caution here. They're 10.5-point favorites to the Bengals, and they should whoop them. And they're going to be favored, like you said, against the Jets several times down the line. But are they going to go to New York and own that team? Probably, but maybe not, right? And I think that John Gruden, for his expert job as he's done coaching all year, has implemented that small amount of fear, right? That if you don't play your best, you will lose because you are not talented enough to get by on your second best. And that's true, and also a pretty good scare tactic to get his guys focused even when they're favorites. When, let's be honest, after the Broncos game, and this is true, they were not favored at any point until I think the Lions was a pick'em game, and then they were underdogs at home against the Chargers. So that's a long time. So I think that John is really trying to say, hey, man, It's great that that we're getting more national attention, but it doesn't mean crap. And I buy it, and I think that it's working.
Scott, that was a great stat you gave. 5-1 in games decided by within one score.
4-1, yeah.
Is there a common theme on why those they've prevailed that many times? Is there something you're seeing there?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is when the margin for error is so thin, it's about poise under pressure, right? And it's not necessarily all in the fourth quarter, right? Those last couple drives kind of get outweighed. But when you can perform, and it's so glaring, right? When you can perform steadily on offense in crunch time and in crunch time on defense, look, man, you give up 406 yards to Matt Stafford, but you make the one play on 4th and 1 with the game on the line that really matters. Who cares about the other 406, right? You got the 0 when it mattered. And I think that is what is allowing this team to survive. Most teams that give up 406 yards through the air a bunch of times don't win a lot of games. But this team has found a way to do those two things well. And it's because Derek Carr is cruelly efficient moving the ball downfield. And just look at the fourth quarter drive, right? Everybody kills Derek Carr about not throwing downfield. And it seems like the more analytics eggheads come up with, the more that they are used to rip the Raiders quarterback, right? He doesn't throw that far downfield. Well, if he throws it to Jalen Richard 5 yards downfield and Jalen takes it 12, it's a good play, right? His yards per pass attempt is high, even though his depth of target is low. Well, that's a John Gruden offense for you right there. So my point in saying all that is to contrast that fourth quarter drive, right? He throws to Jalen Richard 3 times, to Hunter Renfrow twice. Those are not downfield targets, right? Those are efficient ways of moving the ball down the field that set yourself up for the offensive line and Josh Jacobs to do what they did. Okay, that's example 1. Okay, example 2 is Phillip Rivers standing back in the pocket, looking beyond the sticks, way downfield, knowing he's got 70 seconds to go 35 yards, and he's chucking it 20 every single time into dangerous coverage, right? What's the more efficient way to go about your business, right?
Yeah.
The way that the Raiders have found a way to do that versus the way that Phillip Rivers acted in a desperation time that a quarterback of his caliber should not be doing. So my point is that if you panic and you rattle and you think, I got to do extreme measures, you fail. But they found a way to do the smart, efficient thing. And on defense, they found a way to bait you into thinking, I got to go yard, and then they make a play. So it's all about poise under pressure, knowing what you can do, knowing what is the smart play, as opposed to what is the play that will get you on SportsCenter.
Scott Bair joining us. That's a great point you made at the end there. You're absolutely right. The difference between making the right play and making the play, that does get you on SportsCenter. I want to ask you, too, about the MASH unit. They're well into the season. Every team's banged up. Losing Carl Joseph is absolutely huge. So a couple things here. What do they do about Carl and replacing him? Can you give us an update on Florida State's LaMarcus Joyner, and then anything else they're nursing right now?
Yeah, it's a troublesome time on defense because they're losing multiples, and if you think about it, they put Arden Key on injured reserve just before the Thursday night game, so that's really two relatively important guys on IR, and another one that's going to miss some time, right? And they've done an admirable job, and it's time for me to probably write a story about how the position coaches find a way to get these guys up and running. All these new guys that have come in. We talked about the receivers. Now, so it was Edgar Bennett then. Now, now the focus, shifts across to the defensive backs coaches. Can they get a DJ Swearinger up in time to prevent something that no one wants to see, which is Curtis Riley playing steady free safety snaps? I'm sorry. Right. The guy got demoted for a reason. So they need to get DJ up and running. He's confident that he can get that done. It's Nevin Lawson time when it comes to the slot cornerback spot. he's as tall as LaMarcus Joyner, but he's a guy that needs to step up and play well and communicate well in the back and play the run well, because LaMarcus Joyner played a lot in the slot, was also good enough against the run that they never played a middle linebacker, right? That was a way to put some lipstick on the fact that they were only playing 2 LBs, right? So ultimately, losing LaMarcus affects a couple different positions. So now are we going to see more of Will Compton, who is a good player, but might be 230? So there's a lot of complicating things that LaMarcus causes a domino effect. And again, this is one of those things that, is that the old straw camel's back situation? Or can they find a way to make this whole thing work? Again, that's going to be another key test. I think they're lucky to go against a Bengals team that just got a 50-burger, 49-burger posted against them. Joe Mixon is not a good combatant against the Raiders. I think he's a troublesome matchup. But nonetheless, they have what should be at least 1 week to kind of work out some kinks given the opposition coming up. But they do have some work to do in the secondary. This pass defense wasn't good to begin with, and now they got to find ways to make it work with Nevin Lawson, possibly more of Isaiah Johnson, more of DJ Swearinger, for as much as he swears that he's ready to go and can adapt quickly to the system. He was on the street. He did get cut by the Cardinals. That there's a lot of question marks defensively moving forward.
Scott, I don't know if there's any comparison here, but let's go back to, I guess it was Carr's rookie year. So 2014, Raiders are 0-10. And then finished 3-3. So not a great year, but 3-13. But if you look at the last 6, that's a team that won 3 games. It builds you into next season. Is there anything besides the record that shows a similarity with Cincinnati? I mean, 0-9, we all stare at that and go, that's a win for the Raiders. Well, at some point that year, the Raiders figured it out and won 3 of their last games, or went 3-3 and gave 3 teams some bad losses seemingly then. So is this similar in any way? Is there any signs that Cincinnati can be trouble for the Raiders?
I don't think that there is that level of it, because I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are the 2013 Raiders, right? That they're stuck in that downward spiral. They're just bringing Ryan Finley up now, where Derek Carr at that point had 10 games to figure some stuff out. And Khalil Mack, what a lot of people don't remember about him, especially when they make the ridiculous comparison to Cleveland Ferrell, is that Khalil had a bunch of pressures and some very good run defense. He didn't have a sack till like week 10, right? But so my point is that 2014 year, you saw things building, right? That you saw young guys develop under all those losses, and then wham, they started to figure it out. Where we're still talking about, some old farts in the Bengals that aren't getting recycled out until recently. So I think that's kind of why there are some differences here. But I do think that there should be an appropriate level of fear, as I said before, because the Raiders are not juggernauts. If they make the playoffs, it's going to be on grit. And if they win a playoff game, it's going to be on grit and a little bit of luck. And that's okay. That's okay, right? That's part of the upward ascension. And so I wouldn't say that there are a ton there. I just think that Joe Mixon can be a scary player for anybody, and he's a guy that can be really relied upon. But I just don't see a lot of firepower there. You just wonder that there are a couple guys on the Bengals staff. Brian Callahan is their offensive coordinator. That they may know a couple tricks against this scheme, and they may be able to work some things out and get a couple big plays that can kind of turn the tide. But I mean, this is one of those games that if you're for real or you're legit, you win this one, right? That any sign of resistance here, this should not be a one-score game. If this team is going where it thinks it's going to go, it's got to win by double digits. If it doesn't, even if they win, it's maybe a look in the mirror thing and say, hey, man, that we really got to buck up. We are not in a place that we can look down on any team at this point.
Scott Bair, NBC Sports California. You can follow him on Twitter at Bair, Bair, NBC S. You talked about DJ Swearinger. Does that put the lid on Jermaine Whitehead? Is that done and over with? No.
What the Raiders' trend is that they work you out, and then they wave goodbye, and then they reevaluate themselves compared to your workout, and then they decide if it was good enough or not to add you, right? So my point is, for example, Swearinger works out earlier in the week, and maybe they were going to sign him, maybe they weren't, but then they lose Joseph, and now they got to, right? So I think Mike Mayock's workout trend is that they've got some insight in the bag. So I wouldn't say that it's out of the question. And they obviously are willing to sign guys even off the street that may have upside with some questionable background. So I wouldn't say that it's out of the question to answer to give you a direct answer yet. I don't think it's imminent by any stretch, but I'm sure they were curious.
How many people are the Raiders having at Kaepernick's workout? Any?
That's going to be a question for everybody.
Yeah.
I think the answer, without having called anybody within the organization, will be at least one, right? Because you would think that all 32 teams are going to be represented there. The workout, again, I think I've praised Mike Silver on your show before, but I like the way he goes about his business sometimes, and sometimes he'll just drop like epic thread like he did with Antonio Brown. Well, there's an epic Kaepernick thread out there right now about this whole workout came to pass, and the NFL clearly looking for some optics is basically also kind of gave him here's your workout, it's in Atlanta, here's the day that we're going to do it. Do you want it? Let's turn over the hourglass and decide if you really want to do this, right? Not an optimal time. Not workouts happen on Mondays and Tuesdays. This is a Saturday. Didn't get to pick the location. Yada yada. Not a whole lot of time to say yes or no. But nonetheless, so is this an optical illusion that we're staring at, or is this a real thing? Nonetheless, I can't say the Raiders are comfortable with their quarterback situation. Mike Glennon, both in the preseason and his one cameo in Green Bay, it takes yards in chunks and is fearless within this scheme. I think that's a good thing. They like Kaiser, and let's not forget they got a guy on IR, Nathan Peterman, who's not coming back this year that they like. So they like the hierarchy and the youth that they have. So I don't think they're in the quarterback market, but I would expect that on Saturday we hear the number 32 associated with teams represented there in Atlanta.
Interesting. All right, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the week ahead. We appreciate you joining us, and we will talk to you next week.
The Drive.